And this little boy comes up to me and he says, "You're a Mexican. What are you Mexicans doing here? Don't you know that Mexicans don't belong in the school? You're not supposed to be in the school." When that boy said that to me, I felt this pain in my heart like somebody had stabbed me. I felt so hurt.
Creating and having ownership of accessible education has been a long-lasting battle students of color faced. Specifically, in 1855, the California legislature provided that the state school fund be apportioned to counties on the basis of a census of white children. Knowing that education was never something granted to us was a difficult concept to swallow. Having to exist in spaces where we continuously feel out of place, walk with the constant reminder that we may be targeted, and knowing institutions are not looking out for our best interests is an isolating feeling that becomes internalized. Unfortunately, for many Latinx students, being first-generation low-income students of color is a difficult adjustment in higher education as these things become bottled up. With the desegregation of schools ending because of the Mendez versus Westminister case in 1945, the experience many students have is still impacted by the history of discrimination. History gives us a framework to understand how to move forward and not repeat the same mistakes, but it is important to deconstruct it and understand how it may still be very visible and harmful to students. When students experience the feeling of displacement, it is because there is history that sought to exclude us from it, but there are people who change it and still are through taking up space and resisting. Before I expand on the educational segregation Mexican American students face, it is critical to highlight the root of segregation and its main target. Segregation is essentially the practice of having separate housing, education, and other services for people of color. This was prominent in the 17th through 19th century as white Americans believed black people could not coexist with white people. This framework was essential as it was utilized in anything related to segregation. In 1920, segregated Mexican schools emerged due to the belief that Mexican children were a menace to the health and morals of the American community. Many professional educators were in support of segregated schools as they felt it made Mexican students happier. For instance, in a mixed faculty school, Mexican students appeared to be dull and stupid, yet in an all-Mexican school, children radiated joy and had thrown off all the repressions that held them down. In terms of academics, educators believed Mexicans were not suited for book study and seat work and decided to design programs on Americanization that aimed to assimilate them. They began making them take IQ exams in English and banned Spanish to reinforce the notion that Mexican students were not smart. This taught them that the culture of their parents was hindering their education, forced many to internalize that their parents were worthless because of these hurtful actions being imposed. Until September of 1943 in Santa Ana, California, where resistance began taking place. It all began when Gonzalo Jr., Silvia and Jerome Mendez, with their aunt, Soledad Vidauri, and her children went to 7th Street School, a white school in Westminister, California, to enroll. Vidauri's children were allowed into the school due to their white complexion and French last name, while the children of Gonzalo and Felicitas Mendez were turned away because of their Spanish name, forcing them to enroll in a Mexican school. In 1944, Gonzalo and Felicitas Mendez began organizing alongside other Mexican families to pressure the school to construct a new integrated institution. After the district rejected the idea, in 1945, Mendez hired David Marcus, a lawyer who is familiar with desegregation cases, to submit a lawsuit. They believed that the Board of Education of their school district was excluding all children of Mexican or Latin descent, although citizens of the U.S., from the benefits of the schools established within their respective districts. They were in violation of the 14th Amendment, which guarantees citizenship to all persons born or naturalized and guarantees equal protection of the laws. One of the schools that was being sued by the family stated, they were handicapped in interpreting English words because their cultural background prevented them from learning Mother Goose rhymes. On April 14, 1947, Judge Paul McCormick ruled that segregation found no justification in the laws of California and furthermore was a clear denial of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. He further condemned separation for Americanization by stating that the equal protection of the laws pertaining to the public school system in California is not provided by furnishing in separate schools the same technical facilities, textbooks, and courses of instruction to children of Mexican ancestry that are available to the other public schools children regardless of their ancestry. A paramount requisite in the American system of public education is social equality. It must be open to all children by unified school association regardless of lineage. In June 1947, Governor Earl Warren signed Assembly Bill 1375, ending segregation in California. With both the Mendez versus Westminister case and Assembly Bill 1375, it is important to highlight how Mendez versus Westminister became the framework for following legal cases surrounding segregation, such as Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, which ruled racial segregation of children in public schools as unconstitutional. Looking at the resistance of Latinx in education, we see Gonzalo Mendez's daughter, Silvia Mendez, at the forefront. She decided to dedicate her life in educating others across the nation about the importance of the case, specifically, the role that her parents played and how she and other students occupied space. As we look at Latinx taking up similar space in education, it is important to highlight how far we've come. Although segregation hindered our educational experiences, our ability to create ourselves, and forcing us to feel displaced, it is important to note that this is all conceived out of struggle. Though the internalized feeling many Latinx students face now is not comparable to what Mexican American children faced during segregation, the main takeaway is how resistful we are to institution imposing order on us. These seats in classrooms have never been meant for us to fill, but the fact that many of us here are taking up space alongside those who historically never wanted us to is essential to the Latinx experience in the United States. The Mendez versus Westminister case stands as a form of resistance, enabling us to understand the lengths we've gone to and exemplify our capability of using our struggles to receive the rights we deserve.